So, I'm happy to see you all here today at this meeting, which is organized under Bridges of Trust. That's a special training which is only for municipalities which are part of this initiative, those who have partnership relationships with European countries that were established under Bridges of Trust. Thank you for finding time and joining us here today, because we're going to have a very interesting and useful training today, which we're doing for the municipalities because we want them to learn more about funding programs. And in our experience of doing projects together with the Bridges of Trust, associations of cities of Ukraine, and other partners, these joint initiatives are very important in this project. And the EU programs that we have available for us are very useful for establishing cooperation. We used to do similar trainings. They were about Interreg Danube for the Danube region, then Black Sea program, Erasmus, of course. And we need to say that these programs are very particular. They are aimed at regions which have borders, and it doesn't mean that all of the country of Ukraine is covered by them. But it's important for us that everyone is included, and we're going to speak Horizon Europe today. There will be some information about other programs and some elements of project management. Our plan is like that: 2-day training, 4 hours each day, a break in the middle. And I think that now I need to introduce our trainer, who is Ivan Kulchitsky. Thank you for being with us, Ivan. We were not sure whether we should choose a trainer who is here in the European Union, but we chose Ivan, who has more than 30 years of professional experience, and he has knowledge and experience that is needed for municipalities and communities, and he knows a lot about the situation on the ground. So it's a unique situation today when you can hear a lot of useful information from him. More importantly, though, is a chance to ask questions that are burning to you. I know that in the registration form you said that you had certain questions, and we're going to come back to them for sure. I still haven't said I have said who is the trainer, I haven't said who I am. I am Svenislav Taran. I'm a project manager in CEMR in Brussels. And with You Lead Europe and the Association of Cities of Ukraine, we do this initiative, Bridges of Trust. I'm all in favor of cooperation between Ukrainian and European municipalities, promoting European integration and then rebuilding the country. So thank you for being here. I'm sure that this training is going to be interesting and useful. From the technical point of view, I will only ask you to keep your microphones off. If you have questions, you can raise your hand and ask your question to the trainer. And whenever possible, please switch your cameras on, because eye contact is important. It's not a very large company that we have here, about 20 participants. And we're going to communicate, to ask questions, and learn something useful. I think I've said everything I needed to say. If you have more questions, please write them in the chat. And I will now pass on to Ivan. Please, Ivan, share your presentation and give us some more context about you and about what we are to expect today. Thank you, Stanislav. Thank you to the participants for joining in. We did quite some discussion with Stanislav as to what we should have in the program. Because we have experience when we participated in certain event ourselves. In November, we also finished a project where we told local communities about the opportunity to take part in many programs. Of course, we are mostly about Horizon Europe, but we talked about more than just that. There is a variety of approaches as to participation. Some of them are good, I like them, and I will tell you why. They show you the whole of the path. We will talk about that mostly next day, but this is the path from the coordinator to the partner. You will work in a consortium, and it means you need to understand how to be part of that, what you will do. On the other hand, there is another barrier. Not so many people are ready to work in small communities. It's difficult to have a project office or something similar to that. People have jobs, and it's very much good if you can have someone who can be a locomotive, and you can work with associations or universities or innovation companies. What is also important is how these projects meet your problems. So we're going to speak about it all today. If I speak about Horizon, then I've been working there for about 20 years. These are transborder projects, Visegrad Foundation, other donors as well, and institutional experience of the Committee of Horizon is vast. I'm also in Interreg Polska Next, Poland, Ukraine Next. This is a transborder program which used to be called Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, but you understand Belarus is not supported by the European Union anymore, which is good for us because part of the budget went to us. We have a page with our projects. It's in Ukrainian and English. Some of the projects are still relevant. You find materials there, recommendations. So if you need information about the programs, where you can go, the official route is this. I can talk about contact points, consultants, and so on, but you should always go to the official page. This is your first point of entry where you look for funding portal we're going to speak about, and some other programs which are available for us. I also saw that under some other projects, there is a possibility for Ukrainians to join in as well. We also look forward to using instruments from Ukraine facility, which is a targeted assistance from Europe, and then the perspective of Ukraine's joining the EU will mean programs that are for candidates. So the European Union has its own bureaucratic rules. Their budget was planned for 2021-2027, so it's not so easy to find additional funds. So under the funds, under the programs that exist, the European Union, which we're grateful for, is trying to increase increase funding for Ukrainian companies, like something specific for Ukrainians or focus on Ukraine, which is very good for us. It's a motivation for Europeans to invite us. So, how do we understand how European programs work? Just a little bit more about management. We need to understand how that all goes. It all starts with the general strategy of the European Union. Then the strategy will be broken into separate theme initiatives or programs. That's the synergy between the programs. But each of the programs has its own goals. It will be approved of by the European Parliament, and it has its strategy. We don't really read all of those strategies because we would like to know about a specific call where the money is. But yearly, multi-year programs are interesting. In Horizon, these are usually 1 or 2 year long. Healthcare programs are usually for 1 year, and we're going to see an example of a working program from Horizon. Very briefly, I can say that it's a document which explains goals and strategies, how this program is related to other programs and general goals of the European Union, and how should the program influence the life of people. So, as I'm talking about the programs, it would be good if you write in the chat at least some of the names of the programs with which you have experience, that you've been part of, or maybe tried to apply. You can write Ukrainian or English, but I will at least understand what your experience is and what I should focus on. So please, in the chat, would you please write what you had experience with? It's not that you just heard about a program. I want to ask you about the programs where you tried to do something, tried some first steps. And then I will talk more about work program of a specific type, like let's say heart diseases or energy for residential areas. And then there we find all of the explanation, who is part to it, what the budget it has. And then there is a certain period after the call starts, from 3 months to 6 months, when you can apply. You can prepare your applications earlier. And even if you can't still submit your application, you can discuss that with the partners. You can be ready. But the submission takes several months, usually online, using this portal for funding. It's the coordinator who applies, or a lead partner. And the next is evaluation. We are always worried about it because there is administrative evaluation first, then value, and so on. Then there is a rating, and then people look at how many participants they will have funding for. There is some minimal qualification requirements, of course, because if all of the proposals are very bad, like Horizon will say minimum 10, and everyone gets 8 points, then nobody gets the money. Or everyone scores 15, and then there is the choice that has to be made. But so it all depends on how competitive it all is and so on. And then when the evaluation was done and we see the winner, the program goes. Sometimes there are advanced payments like in Turega or the tenure program that is slightly different. You have to do first, but the majority of programs have advanced payments and the final payment is in the end. Then we have an implementation agency, which has its own officers who work with experts, and they usually evaluate results and effects. We will talk about the difference between results and effects. For example, today our goal is the number of participants in the presentation, and the effect it will be if some of you applies. The Euro Commission usually wants to see how that all works. In 2024, for example, half of the budget time went to that interval, and there we talk about implementation, how it is done, and how people are ready to continue later. Of course, now evaluating the programs have been added, supplemented by crisis moments like COVID, and the European Commission reacted by a reserve fund. And another challenge, larger than COVID, is the war, which started in February 2022. And the European Commission reacted. If you look at the documents of the European Commission now, in basically all of them, you will have something about the war and its impact on Europe, challenges and threats, and how Europe is working with that.
One of such important essential points is that every program indicates that they're not aimed at military research, but now there is such an emphasis as dual usage or dual use. So the European Union understands that in any way they fund the studies and project aimed at peaceful life, but the results also are essential in terms of defense. It's a cyber defense, it's energy efficiency, and everyone understands that now there's such a turbulent times and the programs should be in place. Why? Because to say in brief, why, what are all these programs needed for, in your opinion? Why do you actually prepare these projects? You start drawing them. For what reason? Yes, you need to have a partner for pro-life. We'll have a separate presentation on this. And when we speak of projects, there is a usual question: why do you need the projects for? Pragmatically, it all boils down to getting funding. I know that some community heads say that tell us where the funds are and we will distribute them, we will allocate them. But in your opinion, why the European Union funds these projects? What is their goal? Do you have any views, opinions? While you're getting ready, you might not agree with me, but in a couple of words, the European Union wants to enhance their level of economy in terms of competitiveness, because the basis of all the good is actually the level of economy. And the second goal is to ensure the residents' welfare. And there are other goals which might be subordinate, like green economy and other things. You know that green technologies are now debated because Trump has come and he has his own policy views. to decrease expenditures. And now you can see that in Germany, Volkswagen is striking because there are limitations on the industry introduced, and also our businesses are undergoing the concerns that they won't be able to comply with green requirements and won't be able to export their products. But in general, there is climate, there is overheating, global goals, etc. And the next program is actually evaluation of programs and reporting. And this, as long as all this process is on the way, the following programs are being prepared. And the programs, it's the next 7 years until 2028, and further we hope that Ukraine will be a member at that time by 2030. It's quite ambitious, but we hope that there will be many more programs in place. There was also a question regarding LIFE project. I was speaking about Horizon Europe, and there are some initiatives and goals such as the Green Deal, and the Horizon also covers 2-year programs, and we'll speak about them later. Now we can say also, we can speak about your cities. What are the sectors interesting, areas interesting for your cities? And for certain cities, I tried to look through, and I don't know if I'm not sure if everyone has indicated the names of the cities they're from, but it would be very interesting to look what you do actually, and the quality of water. This is one of the problems which is in place. Also, if we speak about energy supply, and we have some alternative energy sources which are now quite crucial, especially for public institutions, for healthcare facilities. Transportation also influences urban situation. In most areas, there are no traffic jams in big cities like Kiev and Lviv. Also, another point is the level of economy and local business development, also education and culture, and digital transformation, which is much talked about. These are the areas which are crucial for the cities in particular. I'm not saying that this list on the screen is inclusive and total, but probably you can also add some points. You can write in the chat what else, what challenges you have, because we are saying that you are pursuing these projects not just to get funding, but these projects can help you to solve your local problems, local issues. When I look, for example, Korostin city or Bogoduhiv, they have water supply programs, and Bogoduhiv, they have the smart city program, and I'm very interested to see how it is implemented. In Malin, there is a catalog of tested ideas, which is quite interesting. Also, Lebedin, I know it for a long time. About 8 years ago, this strong man from this Cossack city, and I see quite old documents on the strategy, although there is a front line close and many IDPs and quite a tough time. Nikopol, which also suffered a lot, especially today from an attack, a rocket attack, missile attack, and it's very sad when you're attacked at your home. Also, I see Kremenchuk, and I see a colleague from Sweden among our participants. But basically, Kremenchuk is implementing a clean city project together with Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Norway. These countries also have their own programs which are available for Ukraine. When you cooperate with the European Union, you can get assistance, you can get aid and funding from member countries. For example, Nikopol had an integrated development project. Also, there is Ukrainian Association of Ukrainian Cities and other organizations, several associations. When we speak of separate programs, Ivan, there is a comment in the chat. Ms. Yulia says about Zelenodolsk Gromada. Could you please comment on that? And also Mr. Thomas mentioned about Erasmus. If possible, please communicate on the chat messages in order to ensure a dialogue. Regarding Erasmus, yes, there is a program for young entrepreneurs. And I didn't stop at Erasmus a lot because we have a good Erasmus office, but mostly they provide university training courses, but also there is an innovation association and programs for young entrepreneurs. And several companies are operating these projects. So you can even address not just the project itself, but the companies which are involved in Ukraine. Also, there is a program aimed at youth. And when we speak of policies in the cities, we can say that cities can participate themselves or be a window for their organizations, including school organizations, student entities, and public NGOs, etc. Regarding Kakhovska hydropower plant, as you know, our research has developed a plan to renovate the territory because there is a big environmental issues and especially with the water supply. But there is a reserve fund in the cabinet of ministers of Ukraine, and we can use those funds much faster because European programs and procedures are quite lasting. But these issues with water supply in that region should be solved fast. We cannot solve everything through European programs. So in this case, you can apply for your Cabinet of Ministers program, and also we can look at targeted donor programs from the European Union. Thomas, thank you very much for your comment. We thank our Sweden colleague for a lot because we know that many IDPs, many refugees moved to European countries, in particular to Sweden. And Sweden actually provides quite a substantial support, which is a burden on the country. We know that many European cities now provide help to our refugees who managed to flee due to military actions. Can I continue now? The next program is the Digital Europe, and it's quite complementary, and it's due to diagnosis of evaluation, assessment of various climatic programs. And you know that AI is quite a topical issue for today, and it might be interesting for our cities also. I am actually a member of the committee of AI committee under the Ministry of Digital Transformation, and now we discuss how to improve the management issues through AI. Ukraine is quite promoted in terms of e-government and digital technologies in general. We are in line with the processes, but I know that at the level of communities, it's not that easy with digital technologies because there are problems in communicating with residents. There are certain difficulties. Perhaps you can be now helped through European digital innovation hubs, which are now to be established and acting in Ukraine in various regions. There is already an agreement, and part of them are aimed at public institutions. When you read the documents, actually, when you often read, when our colleagues read European documents, they read public institutions and translate it as public or social organizations, but it's not true. Public actually is what is funded from the government funds, from the public money collected through taxes. Now, actually, we have training courses for public administration, and we understand that public organizations are those which are funded from the national or local budgets, and they are aimed at public services. Also, cybersecurity and other challenges are quite essential for you. And counteracting fakes. As you know, this hybrid war, which is now underway, it actually influences Europe because it goes through various channels, including disguised masked channels, and there are various programs to show you how to counteract fake information. And also there is a short description of the Digital Euro program. When the horizon will, there are some funds added, but for Digital Europe, not so much funds have been allocated as expected. 9 billion were planned, but actually 7.6 billion are now allocated. Some of the funds were relocated for funding COVID actions. And now regarding Digital Europe, I also can say where you can cooperate, in what areas. The digital transformation of public services like local databases and also the city experience of the cities is very essential. For example, in Poland, they have an association of cities online, and in March next year, there will be a local government forum in Poland where these digital programs is one of the priorities. Smart city initiatives are quite a part of all the programs, Horizon and Life and Digital Europe, because these aspects are related to energy, to monitoring, etc. You can say, we know that in many cities there are cameras, and also if anything happens, if there is any danger or a car accident or some criminals or robberies, we can trace that through web cameras and combine this from public web cameras and private cameras. But there should be certain regulations. And in addition, actually, we here have more Ukrainian participants. Regarding smart cities, there are very interesting initiatives on this from South Korea, which is in the lead of these technologies, and you can trace these processes through their Korean Airways in Ukraine. Also, advanced digital skills is one of the training subject, and there are many aspects for all types of equipment and digital programs, and then the programs are intended for various strata of population, including disabled people, and educational institutions can be involved. Of course, these programs can be done online, but recently one of the projects regarding digital hubs there was a forum, and Stanislav knows about these digital hubs in Brussels, and there is a German project. They made a bus with 3D printer, and they went around rural areas to show how to use it. Generally speaking, you can actually help people with digital skills. I have a question for you. What is the percentage of the population in your cities who pay for utilities through computers or smartphones, or somebody who goes through the banks? They pay even commission. They pay commission fees for paying these physical paper bills. Although it's not a big amount of money, but still for a family it's quite a burden over a year. So it's just a lack of digital skills in the population. We need to develop our web resources to be comparable with the European ones. Can you hear me? Regarding the previous program, Digital Europe, for example, we have partner municipalities. Can they apply for this program? What do they need for it? In general, we can discuss it. It's not like cross-border development. Not for all the programs, there is an opportunity for collective applications. You can use only individual opportunities. For the Digital Europe, it's very difficult for a small city or town to be a beneficiary, but there are organizations that have resources for such projects and they can help communities. In this way, communities can enhance their digital skills level without spending their money. But you can work with those who won these projects and won secured funding. If we speak of digital hubs in particular, there is actually a particularity about this Digital Europe program. And more of such individual programs can be implemented through the program LIFE. LIFE has several areas. It's related to environment. I'm not quite an expert on LIFE, but on this slide you can see, and we have videos, we have also a good presentation on LIFE, which we made in Lviv. I now see that we can I could probably add another slide with a video, but really on our webpage you have such a presentation. And in Ukraine, we conducted many events on LIFE program. You can find information how to participate in it. Basically, LIFE is a part of Horizon. It's like cross-cut initiatives. The Green Deal is not just the European Green Deal is not a part of one program. When the Green Deal started, in the documents, it was even translated in the wrong way. It was translated as a green agreement. So it's not quite even understanding on the legal level even. But now, as you know, there is a Vice Premier Minister Stepanishin, and there are NGOs which promote changing policies related to Green Deal. And one of the elements of the Green Deal is the so-called climate neutral cities. Already 100 cities of Europe have been selected, and then there were contests for European cities for expanding this program, and now there is the same initiatives for Ukrainian cities. This initiative is funded from Horizon and is part of Green Deal.
So here we find the approach when Europeans have strategic initiatives, funding for them, under a variety of programs. Sometimes it's not quite clear in the very beginning what it is. So look, you will find context in the presentation. There was a question about digital skills. You can write to us. Just tell us what you mean by that, and then we can just have a conversation with you. If colleagues from Europe have questions, they can always write in English if something is interesting for them in terms of what the opportunity is. Yes, I have a question. Where do we find the contacts? Yes, in the presentation. If you can just Google me, you will find me very quickly. We do really very much. Yeah, so it's no problem to look for that. Sometimes I'm even wondering that people don't find it. There are so many materials. During the break, I will send you a link to our video recordings, and you will see materials from other projects. We had our final event on November the 29th, and you will also find that there. You will have time codes, so it's easy to orient and then have better questions for tomorrow. Today it's a general picture. Tomorrow we're going to speak more about Horizon, how you submit your application, the calls and so on. The methodology for Horizon is the same basically as for others. You will see tomorrow what you do for Horizon, and you can do the same for other programs. If you can dance anywhere, right? You can anywhere where there is a piece of surface for you, because you know how to move your legs and listen to music. Same with the projects. You just have to do the right thing in the right direction. Life. Nature, as you can see, the biodiversity, quality of life, climate change, and energy. And these things in life are very close to Horizon, but in life the projects are more practically oriented. In Horizon, this is more technological with pilots. Why? We focused on Horizon here. We went into a project in Horizon ourselves. Sometimes our cities think that Horizon is a research program, and it's not for us. But there is now another opportunity. There were wonderful researches and publications, but they need to be used in practice. And to make sure that this happens, we have pilot cases, but it is implemented somewhere. To implement that, you need two partners who can do it. So, in some directions, there have to be pilots. Whether this is an executive body or a Hromada who is doing that, you can decide. Calls. If you submit for a live call, it was in October, I think. Last call. There were several calls. September 17th to 19th. Will you give me a plus in the chat, those of you who tried? We're not thinking that there has never been anything, and now we have this training and people will start doing something. People have been doing certain things for a certain time. So just write it for us, please, like we applied or we missed this call because we didn't know. Or maybe we were not interested, or there were many events. We did an event on live in August with 400 participants. Yeah, I see one question. Do you need partners or not? Well, yeah, Borodyanka is doing some stuff. They're active. I can remember they were active. Okay, good. Something to say about life? Last year, we did a large information session on life. 400 participants online, and as a result, usage just one plus in the chat. Still, maybe the process of application remains very difficult and unclear because people are interested. People take part in the events, but there is very little effect. Well, look, in our project, we have a review of problems and barriers. What you are saying, from our experience, what I can say, sometimes even 700 people came to our programs. But we did profiling, 52 profiles. We wanted to collect 40 profiles and we did 52. It's difficult. Like I always say, Europe is open to you. Just show what you can. It's not a nice comment, like when you go outside, you just brush your hair at least, right? It's easier for men to do it. They just can brush their hair with their hands. to be noticed. As you say, when people are judged on their clothes when they're first met. Same here, you have to have a profile so that people know about you, so that they notice you. In many programs, you don't have to go through the whole difficult path of full submission process. You need to show what you can so that you're taken as a partner. If you want to, that you have to show that you're reliable, you can do proper communication. That's important. Sometimes when people communicate, I can immediately see how skillful people are just from the email. If the email doesn't have a topic, or the email is signed just by Anna, or I don't know, I don't understand who that person is, what an organization the person presents. And then we see that we don't know who we talk about. So you see, a lot of things are noticeable just in communication. Now, an example from a project in life. And please note, Municipal Institute Lviv, they are part of many programs. Drogobich has the same too. This is an ongoing project, and the recommendation that you will find here are useful for others as well. You will see that these cities are not only from Ukraine, there is Sweden, other countries. Yeah, these are people from your network, right? I see Austria here. This was all about heating. So, a specific program, a specific project, and if you don't know what to do, you can look at what other people are doing. 90% of thinking according to an example is useful. So I look at what other people are doing, and it makes me think. And sometimes then I will have an idea that this is what I will do differently. But still, many of these things are very similar in nature, and I just suggest that you think, well, I don't know how I raise my hand, so I will do it this way. Yes, and I will get a sip of tea. I'm Alexandra from Sweden, and I work with several partnerships between Swedish communities and Ukrainian municipalities. Our question is this. On the Swedish side, you don't always find a lot of people who will coordinate the project. While you're writing an application, this is one thing, but then the project starts 6 months later, for example, and that person has to be available as well. So we don't always come through as successful because of that. We don't have enough people. And partners don't provide people. Those who are professional in that are usually busy in other projects, and you need a project manager for a different project now, and they can't always do it. Well, it's not the problem with Sweden alone. You find it everywhere. Yeah. And then when the project is over, what do you do with that person? A lot of cities have project departments, and there are overhead funds on horizon projects. Sometimes you have to make your own investment, you need to have something, and that comes as a limitation as well. For us, what was a limitation is that people who work for city administration couldn't be compensated for their additional work in such projects, including transborder projects, because those investment projects are difficult. It's mostly for the Western territories. We now have a new decree from the Cabinet of Ministries, and people can be reimbursed for that, and maybe that's personal motivation. Very often you need to look at consortiums on horizon. You will see some examples tomorrow. You will see that they are coordinated either by consulting structures or special institutions, which are helpful. So they are coordinating, and they are also grant writers. They write the application, and then the city, the partner, will need to provide them with information, set the goals, and so on. Just make the profile. Tomorrow, Ukrainian cities, please make sure that you're registered with the portal of funding tenders. I will ask you tomorrow.
Ось, на цьому порталі зараз я скопіюю лінк.
Yes, I will copy your link.
Так. І я заодно вже, як я вже є тут, я скопіюю.
And since I'm here, I will copy
я вам
you
скинув лінк на портал
another
фінансування.
link to this portal
А
for
тут скину лінк
funding.
на наші.
And that's a link.
Так. А тут я скину лінк, другий лінк я скину на наші записи заходів.
To the recordings of our events, and you will find information there on live as well. You can access presentations. And tomorrow we are going to ask you, you know that story? When a person wanted to win a lottery and asked God to help him do it, and then the voice from heaven tells him, just buy the lottery ticket finally. That's the same as we're saying here, but it's not very difficult. Now, I don't know how about other countries. We have a multiple layered system of health care. And first, it's usually at the local level. So EU for Health is also part of Horizon. It's a practical program. We did a couple of webinars some time ago on the 26th of November with a cluster of new technologies where we invited people from health institutions. They are very active in terms of how they deal with energy. They have autonomous systems, photovoltaics. You all understand we have a problem with electricity in my life. My electricity will be switched off at 12, and I will have to switch to another source of energy for the internet. And in terms of internet access, despite of the difficulties related to war, we are very much better in terms of access to the internet than other countries. But for medical institutions, having electricity non-stop is important, especially if you do surgery. So they have to have reserves, autonomous supply, generators. They need warm water as well. So our medical institutions are very active. And the webinars on November 26th is interesting. Also, in terms of health, the funding that was planned was decreased. But there is a lot of funding in Horizon. But there is a lot of research meant there. What do we see here? Improving and fostering health, prevention of diseases, or the behavior of people, access to
Ну і тут бачите,
funding, and
сфера
so on.
медицини чим цікава, бо
What
тут,
is
напевно,
interesting
можна
in terms of
шукати,
medicine?
така чутлива тема.
This
От
is
крім
quite
програм можна шукати
sensitive,
допомогу і донорів,
and you can
наприклад,
also
інших
look
речей,
for
подивитися,
donors'
навіть
support
якщо є
apart from
партнери
programs.
зарубіжних країн,
You can see
європейських,
if there are
можливо,
partners
десь на
from
рівні їхніх органів
Europe.
влади, можливо, дошукати
Maybe you
теми
can do
фінансування,
something with
або
their
принаймні
municipalities in terms of
знайти фінансування,
co-funding,
щоб
or at least find
працівники сфери охорони здоров'я між собою ближче
the
познайомилися, почали
funding
комунікувати,
to
якийсь обмін досвідом.
establish
Тому що вважається, що це такий
contacts
рівень наших
between
фахівців хороший,
specialists.
але рівень
Our specialists
технічного,
are
медичного
good,
забезпечення, особливо
but our
приміщень чи інших речей,
technical
як правило,
supplies are
бажає
not
краще.
so good,
Так
unfortunately.
що тут є багато чого, де
And there
можна
is a
співпрацювати. Ну і
lot
тема Health, вона
that you
була
can do it.
першим пріоритетом в транскордонній програмі
Health
Польща.
was the first priority in
Ми навіть
Poland-Ukraine
з Станіславом з вами
program.
не говорили про попередньо про Single
Stanislav,
Market, але
we never
насправді
talked
це
about single
програма, до
market
якої ми
with
раніше
you,
не
but
мали
still,
доступу. Ми
it's
мали
a
доступ до
program
ДОСу, на
that we
який
never
частина
had
всім брати,
access
але в
to
рамках
it,
цієї програми
but
у нас
under
відбулося
this
декілька
program,
доступ до спільного
there have
ринку. Але
been
в рамках
some
цієї програми
changes,
відбулося, от бачите,
and you
було
see
декілька цільових
there was
конкурсів
several
для підтримки України,
calls
кластерів
to
України.
support
Зараз ще
Ukraine.
немає результати про підписані
There are
грантові
no
угоди, вони тільки
results
почали
yet
підписуватися. Я
about
знаю, що 6
grants,
українських кластерів
but I know that
виграли ці
6 Ukrainian clusters
конкурси.
won
І
in
є
these
інші програми,
calls.
тобто це підтримка бізнесу,
There are other
експортних
programs
можливостей,
as
виходу на
well.
ринки країн
This is
ЄС. Тому
support for business, for
ваші громади
entering
можуть
European
поцікавитися, тому що
markets,
ваш
and your
бізнес, можливо, не
communities
завжди
can be
цим цікавиться.
interested
І
in that as
так чи
well.
інакше, якщо подивитися програму роботи
So,
будь-якої нашої міської адміністрації,
if you look at
то серед
any regional
пріоритетів є підтримка місцевого
administration, they
бізнесу.
will all say that
Бо він є
supporting local
бюджетоутворюючим.
businesses.
Ну і от таку річ прокласти ті
And
програми, які є.
that's
Тобто
one
ваш
of the
бізнес
things
може
that
отримати
you can
підтримку
bring
виїзду на
into the
виставки, виїзду
program.
делегацій,
And that
інші
will
речі, і
mean
таким чином розвинути свої
visiting
контакти.
fairs,
Тому на цю програму
going
важливо звернути. Тобто
on
ця
field
презентація, тут живі
visits,
лінки, можна буде
and
дивитися і
all
слідкувати.
of the links are
Ну,
active. You
дивіться,
can
ми
just
зараз
follow and you'll see what is there.
приблизно
Okay. So, for example, the projects of single markets, can you give some examples? No, I'm not telling you here about projects. I'm just saying that 6 clusters won, but we don't have a lot of information about that now. One of them, like, okay, there is a European network of business people, European Enterprise Network, and a company can send its profile to it and look for prospects of cooperation. What's important there? Each profile there will be validated by local authorities. Like you write to me from some email, I do it, and assigned is Ivan Kulczycki. Who is that? Anything can be forged now, but this is the case where all of the profiles are validated, and who people are is quite well known. There is a consortium which is led by the Trade Chamber of Ukraine, Commercial Chamber, and partly it is funded from single market and also from Horizon as well. So double source of funding, as you see here for these networks. And you can look into it and see how you can promote yourselves. Our small businesses, unfortunately, do not use it, but those who do, they benefit and find partners. It's an example of constant support because this EN Enterprise European network existed before single markets as well.
There is such a concept as institutional action, and EN is supported as a project and as a network, and you can see that the action of this consortium has finished, but in order not to interrupt its operations, there was a contest announced, the call for proposals announced in this year with the deadline next year, and the previous consortium will be finished until that time, and there will be some changes because
були спроби,
it's very
скажімо
difficult
так.
to
А
compete
по
with the
кластерах, я
current
думаю, з нового
consortium.
року
Regarding the
появиться купа оголошень.
clusters, there will
Українські
be
кластери
also
пропонують
numerous
усі з наших
calls for
кластерів виграли.
proposals next year.
І як тільки появиться публічна інформація,
6 clusters
бо
have
я
already
потім
been
результати
won.
покажу.
As soon
На
as
сторінці
public
полу
information
публікують,
appears,
хто
it
виграв.
will be,
Тут
I
ще
will
не
show it to
публікують, бо
you.
не всі грантові угоди підписані.
Right now, not
Тому,
everything is published
навіть ми
because
були
not
в
all the
Брюсселі,
grant agreements, grant contracts have been signed.
Певно, в пана Івана вимкнуло
There is
світло.
probably a problem
він,
with
думаю, має
connection or with
перемкнутися до
electricity,
джерела
and
енергії, скажімо так, як він
Mr. Ivan
зазначив
will
перед
switch
цим.
to
І
another
поки в нас є
electricity
така
source, as he
невеличка
mentioned
пауза,
before. And when we have while we
пані
have
Юлія,
such a
ви сказали
technical
в чаті
pause,
стосовно сонячних
there is a
станцій. Можливо,
statement
поділіться,
from
будь ласка,
Julia
цим
in regarding
досвідом,
solar
звичайно, якщо у вас є
power
можливість
plants.
стосовно
If
кооперації
possible,
між
could you
МОЗ
please
та
share
Світовим
the
банком, чому це
experience
попав
of
наш план в яких
cooperation
місяців, чи можна
with
було
the
це зробити
World
швидше,
Bank,
і
and
поділіться
how
вашим
whether it was
досвідом. Я думаю, це
possible
буде
to do
корисно
it
для нашої
faster? If
громади.
you share your
Да,
experience, that
доброго
would be
дня ще раз.
nice.
Дивіться, ну ми не знаємо, чому
Greetings
так вийшло.
again.
Можливо,
We don't know
там
why
було
that
багато
happened.
учасників,
Perhaps
да, і
there were
якось ми
many
так трошки в часі
participants,
затягнулися, але
and it kind of
ми узнали за
was
цей грантовий
prolonged in
конкурс,
terms of
направили
time, but
інформацію
we
на нашу
participated
лікарню,
in the
бо саме
calls
подавачем
in the call for
заявки мав
proposals.
бути заклад охорони здоров'я.
We actually,
Там
in
у
the healthcare
співпраці
institution,
ми
was
заповнили
supposed to
заявку,
be an
всі додатки
applicant.
і
We
відправили оце все на
filled in
конкурс.
all
Ну
the
так воно
documents
розглядалося,
and
такий довгий
filed them
термін.
to the
І
call
от
for
нещодавно
proposal.
ми
And
отримали відповідь, що
recently we
нас
received
відібрали,
a
і що там
response
було
that
дві
we have
черги. Ми
been
попали в
selected,
першу чергу,
and
тобто
there
нам
was
ще раніше, ніж
two
іншим громадам
kind of
поставили
two
сонячні
turns,
панелі.
and
Вони зараз
we
знаходяться в
actually
лікарні,
fit into
потужність
turn
станції
number
15
one
кВт,
and
і
the
сказали,
stage
що
number
скоро
one,
вже
and
будуть їх підключати.
the solar power plant
Дякую.
has
А
already
підрядника
been
ви також
installed and it will
зазначали
soon be
вже в
launched.
заявці, чи вас обрали, а потім
Did you
реалізація
indicate
це вже
the
була
contractor
виключно
in
офіційним
your
підрядником і так
application,
далі,
or
власне,
was
донором?
it after
Так,
that?
так, це виключно
Yes, it
донор,
was
виключно
actually
фонд. Вони самі розробили проектно-кошторисну
coordinated with the
документацію,
donor. They
підрядника
developed the
самі вони
documents and they appointed the
шукали. Тобто від
contractor
нас тільки заявка.
themselves. We
Заявка,
only
опис
needed
заявки,
to
там
make an
розрахунки і
application,
бажання
and
співпрацювати.
we need to have an intention to cooperate. So actually, there was no co-funding, but it was mostly
Так, тут нам
totally
пощастило.
funded by the World Bank. Yes, exactly. Great. That's a very nice example of proactive attitude of a community with a good effect. Also, I saw a very interesting comment in the chat with a plus from Olga regarding applications for life program. If you have an opportunity to unmute yourself, please do it. Or maybe write in the chat where actually at what stage your application is currently, and maybe it will be useful for other communities too, because we don't have we have just a few of examples of such successful applications, but we will discuss this today.
Добрий день.
Greetings. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you very well.
Шановні колеги, можемо
Greetings, dear
поділитися
colleagues.
нашим
We can
досвідом
share our
участі у
experience of
прийнятті Live.
participating in the program
Ми стали
Life.
учасниками
We've
консорціуму. Туди
became
входили також
participants
Неако,
in
це
the
дуже відома французька
consortium
компанія.
with a
Також
very
там брали
famous
участь
French company. Also,
італійська
there
торгова
was an
промислова палата
Italian Chamber of
і
Commerce,
також інші представники
and also the participants
з
of
України. Інститут міста
various organizations and
Львов,
institutions from
Ірпінська міська
Ukraine,
рада.
from Irpin
Гостомельська
City
міська рада.
Council, from Lviv, and from Gostomel City
Так, перепрошую, я
Council.
переключав
I
інтернет.
apologize, I had to reconnect. Yes, Mr. Ivan, now Mrs. Olga is sharing very interesting experience of participating in live program. Yes, I warned you that I will have an electricity outbreak.
Був позитивний, не позитивний.
And what about your experience, Olga?
Дуже цікаво був і позитивний
Oh, it was
досвід,
very
але
interesting and
програма
positive
Life, вона
experience,
така
but the
складна, і
live
особливо
program
з
is quite
документацією
complex
були
in
деякі
terms of
проблеми.
documents in
Але все-таки
particular,
наші міжнародні
but
партнери
still our
дуже-дуже
international
допомогли з цим
partners
розібратися.
helped us great
власне, це той
way
приклад.
to
Якщо ви
figure
маєте
everything
хорошого
out.
партнера,
Yes,
воно
that's a
є.
good example.
Просто
If you have a
інколи,
good
ну, я знаю,
partner,
не
you
знаю, говорити
succeed.
про Бородянку, все-таки
Because
таке
I
місто.
don't know whether you know about
Колись ми були в
Borodyanka.
Бородянці
It's we
з
once
делегацією, що там
visited
такий
this
був мер
little
старший
town,
чоловік, не знаю, хто там зараз, це було
and
років 8
the
назад.
mayor
От.
was quite an elderly man. It
Цікаве
was
місто
about
було Києва.
8 years ago. It's an interesting little
Має
town
багато
close
можливостей.
to
Взагалі,
Kiev
якщо
with
ви знаєте,
good
міста
opportunities.
біля
Basically,
метрополії, є
those
ціла
towns
теорія,
close to the
і практика, як
metropolitan
вони
area.
розвиваються.
This is very
Ну,
interesting
кажу,
to
я по
see
Лайфу
how
не дуже
such
багато
towns
знаю.
are
Ми залучили
developing.
тут місто пан Терлецький.
I don't
Вони там
know a lot
створили,
about
запускали
life
недавно
program,
Лайф Академію, тому що вони
but
там
I
мають
know
проекти
that
по розвитку
there was a
інших,
launch
тому
of the
Лайф
Life
є в контексті,
Academia,
нам
and
дуже важливо в контексті
it's
відновлення
very
України.
important for
Ви
us in
знаєте,
terms
що в
of
нас
renovating,
наслідки війни
restoring
це
Ukraine. You
великі
know that
екологічні
the
проблеми і інші, тому
consequences of
тут десь
war
Лайф
is
цей напрямок
environmental
він буде дотичний. Я думаю, що навіть
environmental
позитивні
effects
результати по
in
Лайфу і
particular.
там по
So
горизонту Climate
positive
Change, вони
results
будуть
in
важливі і
life
при
programs in
відновленні.
the horizon,
Тому тут
climate
і
change
ті міста
programs.
європейські, які
It's
там зараз
very
працюють з
essential,
українськими,
and the European
чому
cities which
в
currently
перспективі не
cooperate
думати,
with
що ви
our
будете
cities
консультантами
is
великих
this
програм ЄС,
cooperation is
коли
very
сюди, знаєте,
important.
буде ринок допомоги Україні.
There will be
Коли
sort
прийдуть
of a
ресурси, то
market
коли
of
прийдуть
helping
це
Ukraine when there
це
is
так
when
завжди,
there are
завжди
resources.
якби цікаво.
It's
Так,
always an
я
interesting
зараз дивлюся,
process.
що в нас з програмою,
Now let
як ми
me
йдемо,
see what
ніби ж
we
12
do
година,
about
чи
the
коли нас
programs.
там зараз,
Now
гадаю,
it's
програму,
12.
відкрию
What is
файл.
our agenda?
Так,
I will now
ага.
share my screen again.
Перепрошую, то 12, ваша 11. Тепер ми якраз нормально. Ми йдемо зараз по
We're actually going
питання ми
right in
обговорили, і
time. We have discussed the
ми
basic
зараз по
issue,
програмі вертаюся
and now
до
we're going
шерінга.
back to sharing.
Так, ви бачите мою презентацію, так?
Can you
надіюсь?
see my presentation? It's uploading. Yes,
Ну,
right
ми
now we
зараз
can
мали
see it.
взагалі говорити,
Basically, now we
про
were
те,
supposed to discuss
як ми,
how
деякі основи
we
менеджменту
discuss
європейських
certain
проєктів.
basics
Тут дещо закрию, так. Щоб
regarding European
розуміти
projects.
взагалі. Я так розумію, що багато наших колег вже і мають
As
досвід,
far as I
але
understand, many of our
в мене є
colleagues
приклад
already have
деяких колег з
an
університетів,
experience,
які
but I have
по тому,
several
як півроку
colleagues from
виконували
European
проект,
universities who
зрозуміли, що треба піти на курси
have been
проектного
involved
менеджменту.
in such
Тому що,
projects,
знаєте,
but then
коли у
they
вас хороший партнер, він
understood
вам
that
каже,
they need
роби
to
то,
have
роби то.
a
До речі, в
training on
2003
project
році ми теж, в
management.
нас перші
In
проекти нас польські партнери запросили. Ми
2003,
тільки розуміли, що треба
Polish
це робити
partners
дуже
invited
добре.
us, and we
І
understood
всі
that we
проблеми, які
need
були
to
там,
apply for
були проблеми
programs
з консорціями
with quite a good
зазвичай.
approach.
Ми
We used
допомагали
to have
закрити,
problems in
але
our
це треба було
consortium, but we
додатково
tried
працювати
to
трошки,
address
кажуть, на
them.
волонтерських засадах.
We had
Українці вміють
to
це
do
робити.
additional
В
work,
Європі зазвичай
including
рахують
volunteer
кожну
work.
робочу годину.
And
Так,
in
до речі, я
Ukraine,
не
it's quite
знаю, тут є
custom of
наші
us to do
європейські
such
партнери,
volunteer
можна
hours.
їх запитати.
And
Бо,
now we have
наприклад,
European
коли ми
partners with us,
готуємо
and we can ask them.
заявки,
For example, when we are
або
preparing an
коли виграє, не
application,
виграє, да?
or
Ми
when there is a
витрачаємо або робочий
case
час,
whether we
або
win
час свій
this
особистий.
contest or
Зазвичай
not,
в
we
процесі
usually
підготовки
spend
проєктів ми
our working
оплачуємо.
hours or
Після того,
our
як ми
private
виграли, хтось
hours.
може отримати оплату, хтось не
And
може дуже часто.
after the
Не всі
project
проекти мають
is
оплату
successful, it's
персоналу, так,
received
по-різному.
funding.
Може бути
Not
премія за
everyone
них.
gets
Але
some payments of
європейські
bonuses for
компанії чи
preparing the
інші,
project.
вони,
But
ви на
European
роботі, ваш
companies,
час вважається, що його треба оплачувати.
actually all the
І
hours
це
you
є вже
spend
проблема
at work
організації. Людина
are
працює,
supposed to be paid
за її
for,
робочий час
and
треба
it's the
заплатити.
problem of the
І
organization. If
тому
a person is working,
більшість,
he or
багато
she
чому
is supposed
не
to
всі
get paid.
європейські організації,
But
в тому числа
for some
міста,
reason, not all
оцінюють
European
ризики,
organizations
не завжди йдуть на
evaluate the
підготовку
risks.
проєктів, тому що не
They not
розуміють,
always
що процес
start
підготовки
preparing the
проєкту це
project
також
because they
коштує.
understand
Це
that
не безкоштовно.
project
Так, ви
preparation
не
stage
обов'язково
also is
платите
also
якійсь
costly.
консалтинговій
You not
структурі,
necessarily pay to
але ви
some
витрачаєте
consulting
час і ресурси
agency, but
своєї
you spend your
організації,
own
а це також щось
organization's
коштує.
time and
Отут є
resources,
десь
which
такий тонкий
also
нюанс
costly.
різниці.
And there
Бо
is a slight
нічого не
difference.
хочу говорити,
I
сказати
don't
зайвого
want
про
to
наші міста,
say
але
anything
деякі керівники
extra about our
вважають, ну що
cities,
то
but
готуєш
some of the
проект, це
leaders
твоя
in our
справа,
cities
виграє,
believe
не
that
виграє, мені тут треба
preparing a
землю продати,
project
мені
is
треба
not a big
заробити, все.
deal
Ну,
because
заробиш
they
гроші, та
need
й добре.
to earn
У нас
some
є дуже
money or
така,
sell a
знаєте,
piece of
різниця в
land,
деяких громадах.
etc. In
Багатих
there is a
бідніших,
difference
інших. Тобто
between our
не всі
communities. There are
розуміють цю стратегію
poorer
і таку
communities and
потребу.
more wealthy
Але
communities. and not
Так чи
everyone
інакше,
understands
бо ми з
the
громадами вже
situation
більше 20
well.
років.
But
Я
since we're
знаю зараз
working
ряд
with the
людей з
communities
різних
for
громад, які
more than
вийшли
20
на
years already, I
лідерські
know
позиції в
many
ряду
people
програм,
from the
які зараз виконуються в
communities who
Україні. Тобто вони стали і
started
піднялися
with the
вище, вони
programs
десь
which are now
покинули
being
свої органи
implemented in
управління,
Ukraine.
але
They
свої рідні
left
міста не
their
забувають. Бо коли ще
they
давно,
are working in
Станіслав,
maybe in the
можливо, це
capital
цікаво було б
city
і
in
для
some
вас,
public
про ООН
authorities, but
створило
they do
проектні
never forget
відділи, там
about
Новоград-Волинський, я знаю, в
their
деяких містах.
towns. Also, there was
Біля
a
нас є Первомайський,
project
там немало
about
була, біля
by the
Первомайська є
UNDP,
Вознесенськ, де вже була активна. Бо ми
and
колись в Первомайську мали
one
проект
it's
по
one of the
відновленій
most in
енергетиці, приїжджали.
Pervomaisk near
До
Voznesensk in
речі,
Mykolaiv
я не знаю,
region.
чи наші європейські
And
міста знають, що біля Первомайська є
actually, European partners should know
заморожена
that near
станція
Pervomaisk
тих ракет
there is
балістичних.
a station of nuclear
Та я побачив,
weapons
що представник я дивився, я побачив це слово
which was
Первомайське,
shut
я згадав,
down
да.
when Ukraine
них-
quit
них своя
nuclear
туристична
weapons.
атракція. Вона,
Actually, it's
можливо,
kind of a
після
tourist
війни
attraction,
і оживе,
maybe,
бо
and
зараз там не дуже
maybe
безпечно
now it's not the
близько
most
Миколаєва.
secure
Але
place.
я
It's
кажу,
too
бо
close
ті
to
міста, які
Mykolaiv,
колись,
but the
там
place
ще
that
років 15
those
назад про
places
ООН створило проектні
which
обсяги,
about 15
у
years
них
ago,
появилися результати. Тому,
UNDP
на жаль, не
developed a
всі керівники
project
міст
and
розуміють
there was
важливість
certain
інвестицій
effects.
в людей і такі
Unfortunately, not
структури.
all the leaders of the cities
Заінвестуйте трошки
understand the
в
necessity
людину,
to invest in such
дайте їй якусь
programs and
мотивацію.
projects. If
Вона
you
поїде на
motivate a
навчання
person, if you
і може краще
send him or
розкаже
her
про
to
цей проект
train,
менеджмент, ніж я.
and they
Чому
will
може
know
краще
more about
розкаже? Тому що
project
вона знає
management
краще
even
ваші
better than I
особливості,
do,
вона може
because
вони
the
можуть
person
сказати
knows
краще
better what
того,
is
що
the
стосується
situation
ваших умов.
locally and
І
what is your
поділитися з вами.
context.
Ну,
The
дивіться,
context.
давайте
And
тепер знову ж таки, я на початку
now
говорив, що є
again, I
от
speak
міста мають
in the
проблеми,
beginning
там
I
вода,
said that
тепло,
these
там
cities
що
have
є.
such issues as water supply,
Своїх грошей не
heating,
вистачає,
etc.,
так?
and they
Тим
lack
більше зараз там в
funds.
новому бюджеті частина
And in
надходжень
particular, our
громадам
current
обрізають, так?
budget
Там треба фронт
now,
підтримати і інше.
the local
Але є
budgets have
проблеми
been cut
для людей
because the
є.
army
Людина
should
хоче
be
жити
supported,
нормально, і
but there are
діти,
problems
школи, там
because people
громади
want
мають
to
укриття
live
будувати.
normal
Наші
life.
громади зараз мають ряд викликів,
The
проблем, які
communities have
може
many
не всі
challenges
зрозуміло
right
на
now,
Заході, да? Але можливо ваші
which
партнерські
those
міста
challenges
розуміють,
not
бо ви
quite
з ними
understood in the
спілкуєтеся.
West,
Ну і
but the
це ми
partnership
називаємо є
cities do
проблема. Її
understand
треба
them.
вміти довести.
And we
Тоді
need to
появляється думка.
communicate
Перша
these
думка,
problems.
навіть не ідея,
The
думка.
first idea
Треба щось
arises
зробити.
that something
Бо
should be
якщо
done.
взагалі нічого не думати,
Because nothing is
значить,
done
значить
and nothing is
або
thought about,
лежати, або
then of
зарити голову в
course,
пісок. Я не знаю, як правильно перекласти
if
це на
you just
англійську,
lie
це
down
такий
on a
ідіом.
couch
Зарити
and
голову в
don't do
пісок, тобто
anything,
ігнорувати проблему,
or
нічого не
just
робити, так?
disregard or ignore the problem,
Але появляється,
you
тобто думка, перша
will
думка.
have no
Тоді
result. So
питання,
you
як,
come up with an idea
чим,
that
ну,
something
появляються
should be
якісь
done.
ідеї,
Then
так?
you
Можливо, одна
come
з
up with
ідей, я не
ideas
знаю,
what
що
should be
робити,
done
давайте
in
знайдемо того,
particular.
хто знає.
For example, an idea maybe that I don't know what to
Ефекти є
do, but
різні, так?
let's find
А
someone
тоді,
who
значить,
knows.
от,
And then
почалися дії, так?
we
Тобто
have
ви вже
some
є якісь дії.
actions.
Ну, якщо ви ті дії гарно
If
оформили, щось
actions
зробили,
are
можна
well
робити проект,
thought of
і тоді що у вас
and
будуть? У
put
вас
on
будуть
paper, you
результати.
can make a
Ну, і
project
після
and then you'll have
результатів
results. And once you
ви,
have
значить, вже
results,
на настрої, досвіду, ну, рухаєтеся
you
далі.
already have
Вирішуєте інші
experience and
проблеми,
you move
можливо,
on,
і
you
так
resolve
далі.
other
От, так сказати, роль
problems.
проєктів. Тобто, в
This
нас
is
зараз дуже
actually the
багато
role
говориться
of the
про проєкти.
projects.
Навіть
Right
якщо
now, we
почитаєте
speak a
урядові
lot
документи,
about the projects,
зараз
even
багато
if you read
говориться
the
про
government
проєктно-орієнтований
documents.
підхід
There
на
is
рівні
always
уряду. Ну і
such a
взагалі,
phrase as
якщо ви візьмете,
project-oriented
подивитися, як
approach.
діють наші урядові
And if you
структури,
look
так?
at how our
Ну,
government
наприклад,
authorities
Мінцифри.
operate right now, for example, the
Можливо, там не дуже
Ministry
воно
of
копається в різних
Digital
полісі документах, але
Transformation,
в
they
них
actually
так
do
званий,
not really delve
ми
into
бачимо,
policy
проєктно-орієнтований
documents,
підхід.
but
Тобто
they
їм
have
треба
a
щось зробити, показати
project-oriented
результат.
approach.
Іноді він
They need
впливає,
to
іноді він не
implement
працює
projects which
добре,
bring
але є критика, але вони
results.
пробують щось зробити і зміни. Так?
They try
А
to
по ряду
change
інших тем,
things,
там,
but
судового
in terms of
Мінекономіки,
other
ну, щось вони тягнуть
topics, like, for
резину,
example,
щось вони
the
туди-сюди,
Ministry of
не беруть на себе
Economy, they are
відповідальності.
dragging the
Невідомо, чи
horse
воно
by the
буде. Ну
tail,
і от
they
воно, знаєте,
kind of delay
багато
things,
розмов, документів, а толку.
conduct many
інертно.
debates, issue many
Далі
documents,
це вам.
but don't have no
Ви ж знаєте цю
results.
ідеологію перевернутої
You know
піраміди,
this ideology of reverse pyramid.
коли все, що зверху,
When
це
everything
широке,
is
а
on the
внизу це
top
ви.
and
Це
below
маленьке.
is
От це, що
you.
внизу, зверху все йде,
So
і
everything
вам
from
треба
the top
дати цьому
comes
раду. Ви
down to
встаєте,
you and you
і
need
це
to
зверху
cope with all that
весь
stuff.
потік речей, він на вас валиться,
All
і
the
що ти
things
робити,
are
розумієте?
flowing at you from the upper
Ясно,
side
що
of the
місцеве
reverse
самоврядування на
pyramid.
Заході трошки має іншу, там більше автономія,
It's
там
definitely
вже більш
in the
нормувалося
West,
право, там не міняється
local
кожен рік,
government
якісь там закони,
structures are
податки.
different. and the taxation policies are different, and the operations are different. Meanwhile, we are working in permanent turbulence. And despite this, we need to understand some basic things. In our projects, we have basic, by the way, we have free courses on some things, but you need to understand the fundamentals. Maybe it's my associations, but we used to believe in the bright and good future. We were optimistic in our youth. And it wasn't a project approach because life went on, but we had a dream. In this case, we need to have any project should be limited in time. If you want to build a house, for example, you think how many years you spent on it. Or if you want to buy a car, or you want to apply for some education or to go on vacation, you think when it will be done. When you think just, I will go on vacation someday, this someday might never come. Very often, if we take the Renaissance project and other programs, they speak of innovation type of projects. The innovativeness is kind of a uniqueness. You do something special, not as others do. If you do something all the time, it's your routine work. And definitely you have some goals of your work. You are goal-oriented. You have your own goals, for example, expand your territory. But if we come to calls for proposals, remember, we discussed the programs, how programs develop their subjects, their plans. You imagine some smart people sitting somewhere in the European Union who allocate the subjects below to everyone. No, it's not the case. Actually, there is a very long preparatory project when there is involvement of various stakeholders, associations of cities, trade unions, public NGOs, etc., experts. Everyone is questioned, and all the proposals come to the top, and then they already integrate all the proposals and show it to the European Parliament. The committees discuss it, and then this way they form a list or a spectrum of projects. And actually, there are goals of these projects. The question is whether these goals comply with the goals you have in your communities. They might comply in some things, but they might not conform in total. So when you prepare a project, you need to outline your goals, and they should comply with the goals of the European programs. Even if you file an application, you need to write, this refers to such and such program, such and such goals. And another issue is resources. For example, if you need to, let's say, restore the Dnipro, the area around the Kakhovska hydropower plant, former hydro plant, you need to plan your resources carefully because resources are always limited. For example, when there is a contest and there is a budget of 50 million, the Commission shows that we got applications for 500,000 million. What should we do? Right now, a number of member countries suggest increasing funding of several areas. For example, there was previous calls for proposals in AI, never good applications, but funding was insufficient. And this way, good applications were not funded. So now member countries suggest that funding should be enhanced, increased. And so the management bodies in a relevant program, they think of resources. And of course, you don't do everything all at once. You should show how you manage your processes, how you manage your work. Tomorrow we will discuss it in more detail. We will discuss the milestones, the risks of a project, and all the aspects of project management. Mr. Ivan, let me use this opportunity and comment on the approach you've mentioned, that this actually comes from the below to the top in the European programs. Indeed, in European programs, those programs take into account the position and attitudes of local government, of various associations and various stakeholders. We conducted representatives of URBAT, it's the Council of European Municipalities, and some of our participants are in a steering committee, and they plan to open a program in Ukraine.
So before this is done in Ukraine, we had a meeting in summer with several Ukrainian municipalities who had the desire and the opportunity to share their experience. For us to know the challenges in urban planning, URBACT is a network of city planners, so to say, and they really consulted with us. Last week, I was asking about the results of our meeting, and they're saying that next year URBACT will be open for Ukrainian municipalities, including the things that or the needs that were mentioned. So it's worth taking part in such consultations because the municipalities who already know about this program, they know better what there is to be expected and can give you more information. So that was a bit of a comment on that approach. Yes, thank you. I totally agree. Such consultations are important. Very often the Commission will start a questionnaire or a survey. In URBACT, I know the Institute of International Policy worked together with the Renaissance Fund, and they were also promoting the URBACT. If you're interested, we can get you in touch with them. They're doing this kind of thing. So, how do we prepare a project? So, there are programs, right? But where is my project in that? What is money? What do we need to do? At all of our meetings, I always ask people if they ever went to the portal for tenders. And they say, yes, sometimes we may do it, or we didn't get much out of it. Our latest survey says that the biggest problem is to find a partner. Maybe you will get some partners through associations, I don't know. The second problem was reading the call. It seems to be all clear. We're going to do more of that tomorrow, but you need to read the conditions. It's not that easy sometimes. Even scientists make mistakes. The call says this and that about nanotechnology, and I do nanotechnology and I'm going to participate. Good. I'm no specialist on nanotechnology, but that's even I see that it's not what you were doing. These topics are usually very specific, and you need to understand how what you find, what you have in your life, how is it fitting into the program. Then you need to understand what needs to be done. If it's energy saving, then, for example, it's not heating. It's regulating the system of heating for districts. It's not insulation. And then if you have central heating, how it all works, those who supply heating, what communications are, how you collect data about disruptions or breaks, and so on and so forth, to make sure that you provide some energy saving. Then it depends on who wins it. Then funding portal makes it possible to apply 48 minutes after you register, but 24 hours in you have partner identification code. then
але
you can
грант з вами не
apply.
підпишуть, поки ви
But no
не
one's
будете
going to
валідовані.
sign a
Тут
grant
деколи
agreement
є,
with you
деколи
until
є
you're
проблема
validated.
із європейськими особливо
Sometimes
малими
there is a
підприємствами, які
problem
там
with small
на момент
enterprises in
подачі не
Europe
валідовані, а
which have not been
МСП,
validated
СМІ,
at the
значить,
moment
ну,
of
там не так швидко їх
submitting an
валідують. А
application,
з
and
консорціумом
it's not
грант не
so
підпишуть, поки всі члени
fast.
не будуть валідовані.
And a grant
Ну
will
і
not be signed with the consortium until all of the
підписали. Ну,
members
крім
of the
грант агрімента, який
consortium
підписує
are
грантової
validated.
угоди, які підписує
So grant
координатор,
agreement, it's
підписує ще
signed by
угоду
the
консорціуму. Як партнери між
coordinator,
собою
and
співпрацюють.
agreement is
Значить,
signed
ну,
by the
не знаю, як в
consortium
лайфі
how
там чи в
partners
інших, але в
cooperate
роботі
in
ще є
life
угода
or
консорціуму.
other
Далі йде
programs, whether they
імплементація.
have it or not, I
От
don't know,
при
but
реалізації завжди
that
є так звані
exists in
поточні звіти.
Horizon.
Зазвичай
Implementation,
є офіційні дати звітності, де йде
there
фінансовий
are
повний звіт. Як
reports,
правило, це 2-3 рази
progress
протягом
reports,
виконання проекту.
financial
12
reports
чи
2-3
18 місяців.
times during the
Ну і є ще
progress,
півроку поточні
the program,
звіти, як
12
іде
months
виконання
in or so.
проекту. І тут звітується. Звітується наші
What we
координатори,
report
звітуються
here?
члени.
The
Члени
coordinator reports, the
консорціуму подають
members report.
інформацію координатору, координатор
So the
звітується
members supply the
перед Європейською
coordinator with
комісією,
this information,
подає
and the
інформацію
coordinator
так званому
reports it to
project
the
officer.
European
Наприклад, в Горизонті
Commission, to
там
the
є
project office.
project
In
officer
Horizon,
і
there is a
фінансовий офіцер.
project
Ну і
officer
тоді
and a
вже
financial officer.
замикання,
And
тобто
then,
треба скласти фінансовий звіт повний, тому що
in the
в більшості
end, there is a
програм
full
фінальна оплата
financial
там 10, 15, іноді
report
20%, в залежності може бути
because
більше,
the
в залежності від
funding is
програм, йде
up
оплата
to
після завершення робіт.
15-20%,
Тому такий
depends on
типовий
the
проект треба
program, is
розуміти,
done
що
after
це
the project
десь треба
is
мати запас власних коштів.
finished. That means
От,
that you
ну,
have
є
to have
нюанси,
your
як це
own
можна
funds.
зробити,
There's some of
скажімо,
that.
бо в
And
горизонті
there
там
are
є так
ways to
звані
do it in
flat rate
Horizon.
накладні, і прямі витрати можна
You
покрити,
have
а
flat
ці
rates,
витрати, які
you
зв'язані з
can
накладними, вони можуть бути покриті пізніше.
compensate for that,
Тепер,
and some
коли ми
other
говоримо, як
expenses can be
розробляти проект,
covered later.
це не просто набір
Then,
побажань,
proposal
є типова,
development.
так сказати, підхід,
It's
який
not
називається
just
SMART,
some
розумний.
wishes.
Тобто ви
There is a
маєте
special approach called
специфікувати,
SMART
тобто ви маєте
approach, and you have to specify
писати, ну
here.
так само навіть
You need to
просто заявка
write,
на фонд відродження,
just
ви
like you
так
do
само маєте
for
дати цілі. Вони є, або, ну, наприклад,
you
може
have
бути
to
загальна ціль,
write your
одна,
goals.
і
General
додаткові
goal,
цілі, і
additional
крім цілей ще може
goals
бути
have to
задачі,
be identified
завдання,
here.
не просто
The
задачі, завдання.
tasks,
От. Але ми описуємо в цих цілях, що ми
here we
хочемо
describe in
досягнути.
these goals what we
Тобто не
want to
просто,
achieve,
наприклад, там покращити систему медицини
like
в
improve
громаді. Ні, ми хочемо
health in the
зменшити там
community. No,
дитячу
we
смертність
want
на
to
5%,
bring
чи
down
там на 10%. Або ми хочемо
childhood
зменшити рівень
mortality by
сердечно-сосудистих
5%,
хворіб
I don't
на
know.
10%.
Or we want to
В такому
decrease the
плані. Або
number
ми
of
хочемо збільшити кількість людей, які
cardiovascular
там
diseases by
виходять
some percent,
на
or
прогулянки чи
decrease
на
the
біг, чи
we want to
займаються
increase the
спортивними
number of
секціями на
people
20%.
who do sports
Тобто
by
ви загальні воно маєте
20%.
специфікувати. І це
You have
зразу
to be
йде
specific, and
поєднано
that
з
will
вимірюванням.
immediately
Ви ту ціль
have to
формулюєте
be
так, щоб можна було
measurable.
її виміряти.
Your goal has to be
Рівнозонна група.
formulated in
Тобто
such a
це
way
якісь
that it is
індикатори. І взагалі в
measurable,
більшості
and there have to be indicators.
більшості проєктів є так
The
звані
majority of
фрази
programs,
KPI, або
you
англійською
have
Key
KPI,
Performing Indicator,
or
тобто
key
ключові
performing
індикатори виконання.
indicators.
В будь-якому проєкті,
Any
значить,
project
раніше так дуже жорстко не було, було
will have it.
загально,
It
але
didn't used to be so
в
specific
горизонті
before,
і інші ці
that was more
індикатори
in general,
виписуються.
but in
Так само
Horizon
вони
you have to
виписуються в
have these
транспордорі, я думаю, що в
indicators.
інших програмах.
In transporter
Якщо навіть
programs, you
там, наприклад,
also have
якщо
to
по
have
сайту
that.
пише кількість відвідувань сайту,
If it's
якщо
a
там
website,
публікацій,
it's
скільки
a
публікацій, якщо заходів,
number
скільки
of
заходів,
landings.
далі.
If
Тобто є
it's
конкретні
some
індикатори.
events, then the
Ну і
number
ці
of
цілі
those
мають
events,
бути
and so on.
реалістичніші.
These goals
Ну,
have to
наприклад,
be
якщо ви знаєте ціль,
realistic.
звичайно, медики хотіли би написати в
It
нашому
has to
проєкті
be
ми знайдемо
achievable. Like
лікування
doctors
раку.
will
Ну,
want to
це
write that
взагалі
we
там
will find a
канцер, рак
cure
це
for
одна
cancer
з
in this
місій глобальних
project.
стоїть в світі перед медиками,
Well, it's
вона є
one of the
завжди.
global
І зрозуміло, що поставити
challenges
таку
in the
ціль,
world.
ну,
It is in Horizon as
трудно
well,
повірити,
but
що це, але
setting
якщо
that
ви
for your
є
program,
мета
that will
знайти
be
якусь
difficult to
речовину, яка
believe.
там
If it's the goal
зменшить поділ
to
еритропіток,
find
або
some
вона там
substance
покращить
which
рівень
can
там чи збільшить
influence
процент
the
успіху операції,
multiplication of
то це може
cells
бути,
or
тому що це базується на вашому
something
попередньому
that
досвіді,
is
і тому
improving
можна
recovery
повірити, що
rate.
ця ціль
That's
буде досягнута.
believable and
Ну і
that's
релевантна,
achievable.
тобто ця
then it has to be relevant. It has to meet the general goals of the program. And this is something that we forget. Grant writers who are professional usually help with that, because here you have to write how that means gender balance, the Green Deal, increase of workplaces, and general goals of the European Union. That is something which you have to identify in the project. You have to say how your specific project will make its input into the global goal. If you are able to write it in words that are clear, that will be very good for you, because this is always welcome. And then you have to write all of the deadlines. It's all time-bound. If you're able to do that, that's good. So, sometimes the people are very interesting. 24 hours before the deadline, somebody calls me and says, you know, I've read that about a call. Just tell me what I need to do and I will do it. It's like a student who can study Chinese and then pass an exam on it. Well, if it's a big project, a complicated project, and your role is important there, you will not do it in a month. So that's what I was saying about working programs, when you need to understand what that is. It's not always easy to get in contact with all of the partners. There can be technical mistakes. It will all take time. The more time you have, the better it is. Good. Where can you find the idea? It's one of the problems too, looking for an idea. It's best, I think, that I can work and think when there is no deadline for me, when I don't have to do a presentation overnight. When even I was preparing the presentation, it made me look at certain things in a different way, so this is some push for self-development, but still, it's a chance to think. If you're looking for an idea, you need to have evidence for that, previous publications, statistics. There is a lot that you need to find, and we gave you some information as to where to look for ideas. One of the things here is you need to read European documents. And then what they recommend, you just say that, but in different words. Like if you want it, we will do it, but you have to have a skill of paraphrasing. But still, that will push you in certain direction as to what you can think about. Then global European ideas and proposals. So you can identify something good for you and see how it relates to your problems. When I was preparing this information, I found some good examples. You can look at what other people used to do. You can look at other projects that were done. You can see there what organizations were doing that, and it means that you know who you can ask for advice. Maybe they will invite you. We can look at Lvov as an example. They were looking for Ukrainian cities for the next call, because they are already seen as specialists. They were looking for partners. They were doing the so-called Life Academy, and they were looking for cities which are medium to small, 50 to 100,000 people, to be invited into such consortium. What is good about working here with them? These people have experience, they have authority, they have reputation, they have good partners, and they will help you with implementation. Very often you enter a project, especially with Europeans, and then you know, okay, it's your first time. It's a good European project.
3 роки
and
мучили. Кожен крок ви його питали, він вам відповідав. Ну, то є культура відповідає.
it took
Як ви
your
думаєте,
3
йому це
years
легко
to
було?
do it.
Йому це зручно було чи їй?
It was difficult for you,
Немає
it
другої
was
роботи,
difficult
як весь
for
час вас вчити.
partners. They also have a
Розумієте?
different job
Це
that they're
є трошки
doing
такий
apart from
такий
that.
нюанс, розумієте?
And you need to
От мене зараз,
understand
наприклад,
that. Like,
я
for
в новому
example, right
консорціумі.
now, I'm in a new
Мене запросили
consortium.
там,
I was
тема екрану була там
invited
хімічні реакції, переробки
on the
відходів.
topic of
Ми там маємо
chemical
10 складних задач.
reactions in
У
waste
нас зараз тільки проект
management.
почався.
The
Ну, і в нас
project
є
has just
знана компанія,
started.
яка
We
там
have a company
підготовила шаблон для звітів.
that
Я його
prepared
трішки поправив.
a
Вони там деякі речі пропустили.
form for
І вже не
reporting.
треба
I
мені
corrected
пояснювати там
that because
партнерам
they missed
чи
certain things.
координатору,
I
що я
don't
в
have
цьому
to
не розумію.
explain to
Достатньо
them or
було
to the
зробити
partners
пару
that I know
практичних дій,
things. I just
помогти
needed to do
партнерам.
several practical
Треба
things, help
культурно робити
partners,
зауваження, да, тут завжди така
make
етика є.
some comments
І
in
вже
comments in a
більш-менш ви
nice
тоді
way,
якби в консорціумі
and
розумієте, що до вас прислухаються,
in that
і
consortium you will
краще у вас
understand,
є.
you will
А
stand
в
some
консорціумі дуже
reputation
багато
and people
сильних
will listen
організацій,
to
тому
you.
тут треба, думати. Кожен раз, кожен проект – це новий виклик.
Each
У нас було
project
багато
is
проєктів, і
new
нема
challenges. We
жодного
had a
проекту,
lot of
який би виконувався по одному
projects
шаблоні. Завжди,
that we
завжди
did,
мінялося.
and none of them
Ну, і
were the
тому і оце є
same.
співпраця з партнерами. Треба
So
вміти
cooperating
прислухатися
with
до ідей,
partners is
дослухатися.
important. Listen to their
Розумієте?
ideas, listen to
Насправді,
people.
в нас є багато заявок, де
We
я
have a lot of
бачив, що
applications where I see
проект не пройде. Ну, у нас був один
that
проект
the project will not
з
pass.
італійськими містами одними,
We
і
had the project
вони
with
явно хотіли
Italian
просунути
cities,
одну
and
ідею, яка була їм
it
цікава.
was
Вони
obvious that they
зібрали
wanted
6
to push
партнерів
through
з Італії,
one idea that was
плюс
interesting for them. They had 6
з'єднаємося. Ну, ви
Italian
знаєте, якщо ви є
partners and
лідер
they wanted
і
us.
кажете, хтось до вас
And you know
приєднається,
that if
то
somebody
ніхто ж не
is
відмовляється, знаєте. Виграємо, не виграємо, ми не відмовляємо,
joining a
приєднуємося. Да?
project,
Ну, це ж один
that's an
ефект. Ну, звичайно,
opportunity that
що
nobody
з мого
says
досвіду
no
я розумію,
to.
що цей проект не
But
пройде,
from
але
my
ми не
experience, I
відмовилися. Ну,
understand that
хай
that
буде.
project
Можливо, потім
will not
з
go.
тими
But we
партнерами ми
didn't
так
say
якось
no.
виграємо,
Who
розумієте, такий
knows?
нюанс.
Maybe
А
sometimes
з другої
later
сторони ми
we
подивилися,
will
чим вони
go.
займаються,
We
нам
will
цікаво,
be
є
able to
місця
do
там
it
теж.
with
От,
these
тому,
partners. But
ну,
still, it's
весь час, але
interesting. We
основна
saw
критерій,
what they do.
люба ідея, вона десь має відповідати
But
тому, що описано
any
в
idea you
заяві. Весь
have
час ми до того
has to be
повертаємося, тому що
about what's
це один з
in
критеріїв
the
безоцінок. І
call
треба подивитися,
description.
а що ж хоче Європейський
You
Союз
always need
в
to look
тих
at
умовах.
what the
І
Europeans
тому
want,
такі коло
what's in
брейнстормінгу, воно
the
йде, розумієте? Ми спочатку говоримо
description.
багато, що ми би хотіли,
Because we very often
наші
say what we
побажання, але
would
потім
like
ми їх
to,
структуруємо, і
but
таким
then we
чином
need
от
to
десь воно
structure our
формується.
ideas and
Ну, скажімо так, якусь проектну фішку або
have
концепт
some
проекту. Ідея
idea, some
переходить в концепт
concept
проекту,
of
де
the
вже
project.
є декілька партнерів ключових,
In the
де
concept, you
зрозуміло,
have
що би ви
several key
хотіли робити,
partners,
тоді йде
and you
наступний
understand what you
етап
want to
уточнення
do,
деталей, там вже
some
і
details,
задач, тоді вже можна потрохи
the
говорити про
tasks, and you
бюджет.
can start talking
Ну і
budget
тоді,
here.
бачите, я не друкував презентації, так по пам'яті просто знаю логіку,
I
як вона має
just
бути. Я говорю, що
did
є
that
ідея.
from memory because I
Ідея
understand
це
how it
які
should
основні
work. So we
цілі,
have an idea
вони
first,
відповідають нашим цілям
then we have
програми.
main
Ми
objectives.
дивимося,
We make
які
sure that
партнери.
they meet the
Дуже
objectives
важливо
of
на
the
цьому
program.
моменті говорити, хто координатор. У
Partners,
нас тут була
it's very
колега, яка
important
працює в
to set the
Швеції, і
coordinator. We had a
багато
colleague from
організацій,
Sweden
університетів чи міст,
and a lot
ну,
of
вони не хочуть бути
organizations and
координатором. Бо
universities.
координація це
They don't want to be
це
coordinators.
важлива окрема робота, це звітність,
It's
це
a lot of
постійно має
work.
бути виділена
In
людина, яка
addition,
займається
this is
технічними
reporting.
адміністративними питаннями.
There is a
Там
need
переписка
for
з
a person
Єврокомісії,
who
там
does
якісь нюанси,
administrative
там якийсь
stuff or
партнер
technical
щось не
stuff,
додав, завалив,
and
там
then
якісь
someone
юридичні
forgets
проблеми, там,
something
ну,
in one
такого не
place.
було
In a different
консорціуму,
place,
щоб
you
якийсь
have just
партнер
legal
десь щось
problems. There have
недоопрацював.
never been a
Десь затримки по звітності. Ну, одним словом,
consortium where all
там є
partners
багато
work
нюансів. Ну
perfectly.
і є
A
так
lot of
звані
things can
ключові
happen.
партнери, core-партнери.
Then there are
Зазвичай
key or
вони,
core
зазвичай ці
partners.
ключові партнери, вони
Usually, these
є
partners
лідерами робочих пакетів або лідерами
are
окремих задач.
leaders
І
in
вони
specific
відповідають за певні
tasks or
частини,
work
фрагменти
packages, and they are responsible for
проекту.
certain parts of the
Тоді є,
project.
то вони мають свою відповідальність. Ну і
They
є
have their own
інші партнери, які там
responsibility.
важливі.
There are other
От
partners
ви
who
не
are
обов'язково
also
маєте навіть бути
important.
тим важливим партнером,
So
який
you don't
веде
really
якісь
have
пакети,
to
але,
be
наприклад,
a
з вами
core
може бути
partner,
реалізований якийсь пілот
but
або зроблений.
you
Ну і
can be
бюджет.
part of implementation
Зрозуміло,
of
хто має
something.
найбільший бюджет
Budget.
типово.
Who has the biggest
Типово
budget?
бюджет найбільше має координатор, ну і
It's the
лідери пакету, тому що
coordinator
вони виконують більше
and
роботи.
package leaders because
Бюджети
they do
взагалі
more
рахуються,
work. Budgets are
за працю, більше
calculated
роботи, більше оплата,
thinking
за годину, за місяць
about
чи за день.
work,
європейських країнах
how
більше.
much work is
І
done,
витрат на заходи, на поїздки, на матеріали,
and
можливо,
what
на
is
якесь обладнання.
needed for
Ну і тоді обговорюємо
events
тривалість
for
проекту.
planning that.
Зазвичай
Then
тривалість
we
проекту
talk about the
вказується,
duration of the
комісія очікує
project.
код.
The Commission
Вона
will
вказує, чи
usually
там, ну, як правило, місяця, чи там
sign or
24
write what
місяці,
kind
чи
of
36,
duration
чи
they
48 місяць.
expect.
От,
24
тобто така
months,
типова
36
Іноді
or
бувають до 12
48.
місяців, бувають проекти, які
Sometimes
на
it's
рік.
12 months, just
От.
a
Ну і тоді
year.
ви готуєте план підготовки проєктів.
Then you
Бувають, вам
prepare a
можуть
plan for
пропонувати
drawing
не
a
так часто,
project.
але буває так, що
Sometimes you may
хтось
be
пропонує
offered
внести якусь оплату.
to
Ну, тобто треба запросити
bring some
консалтингову структуру.
payment.
Іноді хороші координатори, у нас
Sometimes
такі там були
a
координатори,
good coordinator,
які в
and we
кінці
had such
ну,
good
просто запрошували
coordinators at the
консалтингову
end. They
структуру, яка
actually
робила
invited a
званий англійською
consulting
мовою review,
agency, which they made a
перегляд. Тобто вона
review
робила огляд проекту і
of the
ну,
project
давали консультації і
and
допомагали
provided their
поправити які
advice
тоді
and helped to
хиби, щоб був
adjust certain
краще. Ну,
problems,
і
certain
треба так
errors
само,
to
зараз все
improve the
працює в
project.
цифрі, тобто
And
раніше
now
треба було
everyone is working
один з
in
наших
digital
проєктів, то ми
form.
там, наприклад, їздили в
In
Дрезден,
the
на
past,
зустріч
we
партнери,
used
щоб
to go to
побачитися,
Dresden, for
бо
example, to
важливо
the
мати
partners
особисту
to
зустріч.
show
Зараз вже
ourselves,
після
to have
ковіду
personal meeting. Now, after
при
the
підготовці
COVID
достатньо
pandemic, when
зустрічі онлайн, з вами можуть окремо
actually
зібронюватися,
online
можуть інші.
meetings are
Ну і питання
are sufficient.
інструментів.
And another
Того, що
issue
я
is the
знаю, більшість
tools. As
працює в
far as I
Google
know,
Доках
most of
або
people
в Teams.
working with Google Docs
Тобто
or in
багато європейських
Teams.
структур працюють
Many
в Teams,
European
Microsoft в Teams,
entities work
з
in
файлами в
Microsoft
Teams. Тут є
Teams
питання,
with Teams
наскільки ви
files.
з тими
And the
Microsoft
question is whether
аккаунтами
you are
вмієте
familiar
працювати.
with such
Бо я
accounts
працюю в
and
Teams,
you
треба
can work
дивитися.
with them.
Хоча
Because
навіть,
although
навіть коли є навіть коли в
when
Teams, як правило, коли
in
координатор
Teams,
бачить, що
if a
ну,
coordinator
не
sees
всі
that
мають доступ до
not
Teams, на
everyone
етапі
has
підготовки, то
access to
переходять в Google
Teams at
Доках
the stage of
спільного доступу.
preparing, they go,
Ну і
they prefer to
пускати цей,
use Google
я вже
Docs
сказав,
with
пересилку електронної
joint
пошти і
sharing,
інші
and
є.
also, of course,
Ну і
the
тепер
email is
має бути,
used.
ми побачимо на прикладах
Next,
по горизонту,
when we
важливо
saw, as we
сильний
saw with the
консорціум.
horizon,
Тобто,
there should
ну,
be a
не може так
strong
бути, щоб був
consortium.
консорціум, там
There
самі
shouldn't be such
університети,
situation that
якщо то
with
інноваційний,
only
або самі,
universities
або
or
самі міста.
some
Тому,
only
коли ви будете такі
cities. So
проекти,
when
ну,
you
не
maintain
обов'язково
a
ви йдете в
project,
проект зі своїм партнерським містом.
it's not always that
Так, в
you
деяких
work with
проектах може
your
бути,
partner city.
але
Yes,
це
with
не
some
обов'язково.
project it's
Тобто ви такі
possible,
проекти
but
можете
not
йти окремо, але
necessarily.
потім поділитися досвідом.
But
Ну і
you share
має бути певна
experiences,
така звана
and
комплементарність. Ну,
there
це дуже
should be
часто показують картинками на
complementarity,
пазлах
which is
один одного доповнюють.
shown
Тому
usually
тут,
as puzzle
і
pieces, and
тому,
puzzle pieces
наприклад, у
complement
тих
each
кейсах,
other.
які там в мене будуть по
In those
горизонту
cases which I had
завтра,
with the
буде
horizon, and
видно,
we'll
що
discuss them
українськими
tomorrow,
містами заходять і
you will see that
університети, заходять консалтингові
to
структури,
Ukrainian
заходять
cities,
міністерства,
the
заходять
projects
асоціації.
come
Ну і
through
так само
ministries, educational institutions, consulting
важливим плюсом є
agencies,
наявність
etc.
досвіду.
And
От
a very
завжди
important
є
advantage is the
одна сторона в
experience,
заявці,
because
горизонті
one of the
питань,
parties
описується
is the in
потенціал, навіть
application.
дуже коротко,
One of the
потенціал
sections in the
партнерів і
application
як
is the
їхній
partner
потенціал
potential
або
and
досвід,
how this
потенціал є
potential
релевантним
and
їхнім задачам.
experience is relevant to their
Розумієте? Тобто,
tasks.
тому тут
So the
десь
roles
має
of
бути це. Ну
partners
і
is very important.
знову ж завтра, якщо ми бачимо
Again,
фандінг
tomorrow
інтендер, цей
we
портал,
will
фінансування
discuss
тендерів,
this
він
site
має можливість
about funding,
виставити свій
funding and
профіль
tender, this web portal
на
where
іншому, ну,
everyone
але там
can
дуже багато
put
виставляють,
their
тобто там
profiles.
треба вміти
Many
гарно написати, що
entities
на вас звернули
put
увагу.
their profiles
Тобто,
there.
якщо ви
It's
там
very important to write your
дуже
profile
часто
in an
вам
interesting
питають,
form,
що і ми
in a
вас
nice form,
побачили,
so that
візьміть
everyone is
нас в проект.
interested
Ну, але
um,
одна
to
з
be
останніх проєктів, які ми
noticed.
зараз виконуємо,
And
ну,
one of
нас
the
знайшли
latest
по цьому
projects which we are
Хто
now
здивився,
implementing,
що він
they
працює,
use
але
this
профіль
profile.
на фандінг
Some
інтендер працює.
people
Ну і
got
багато інших речей,
disappointed in
де
this
де
web
можна знайти досвідчих
source,
партнерів.
but I recommend it.
Інформаційні дні,
It's
брокерські,
actually a
які
place
європейські
where we can find
партнери
also
проводять,
reliable
там все можна
partners,
знайти.
and you can find any
Ну і
information
тепер,
about
коли
them.
ви вже маєте
And
концепт,
then,
треба
when you
розділити
have a
задачу,
concept,
проект на окремі задачі.
now you split your project into
Зазвичай є
separate
типові
tasks.
пакети
Usually there are
задач.
typical
Це
packages,
менеджмент
work
і
packages,
поширення і
or double
комунікація.
Ps.
Моніторинг,
It's
evaluation,
project
ну і
management,
попадає деколи
analytical
менеджмент
overview,
по-різному.
technical
Ну і
development,
далі
monitoring and
проекти,
and
як би
evaluation,
орієнтовно,
destination and
яка ж
communication.
аналітика, огляд, і щось треба
Of
зробити.
course, This is essential, and all these WPs are due to the real content of what you intend to do. It also can include exchange of experiences, and these WPs are split into separate tasks. Tomorrow, I will show you these kind of tasks in the Horizon projects. I already see what I need to prepare. And for every WP, you show what is the deliverables, whether it will be some report or some product or some other output. And also milestones are quite important. These are key progress points, which it's from project management again. They indicate that if you do not achieve this and this, you will not go further. Ivan is trying to read the chat. Okay, look, Stanislav, regarding responsibility of the parties, it's another thing, but there is also a comment in the chat regarding the Urban Interact. Urbact has a separate website, and on the Interreg website, there were about 700 Ukrainian profiles as of November this year. Not everyone reached the partnership stage. With the partnerships, there were about 600. Yes, the Interact has a website, and there is a very nice option when Ukrainian organizations could be joined, could be involved in diverse projects. I know that over a dozen of our organizations got involved. Really and formally, we involved with the Interact this year. There are certain difficulties with payments and prepayments, some administrative complexities, but there is a good database of knowledge and good scope of information. And also Interact relates to other programs. For example, the hubs in the Horizon, the digital hubs are available, and in Digital Europe, but there are various cities in Interact that develop their digital skills. I think that Interact is a good database for finding ideas for projects. You can look what other cities did, and you can understand that you would do this and this also. So you can look through these Interact projects, and you can see what kind of projects are used by the cities. Not all the cities are interested in such projects because they lack funds, they lack people, and they have enough with their partnerships, with going to their partners, seeing experience and having such visits, mutual visits. And that's enough. And surely every city is interested in greater projects. As Swedish colleague mentioned, greater projects involve more efforts and preparation and implementation. But we haven't touched the Interact program because there is certain specific features. So I think that Stanislav can give more about Interact. Yes, I saw a comment. I will provide the response, which can be sufficient and urgent and topical for Ukrainian municipalities, how to be involved in urban community, in urban events, in particular in the festival in Wrocław city, Poland. Whoever is interested, you can go follow the link which I gave in the chat. Yes, and you can also familiarize yourselves with the Interact database and use it for participating in other programs in Live, in Horizon, in Digital Europe, because all of
Другі-
these topics are in overlap. If I may, I can add, I haven't found how to raise the hand in Zoom. In Interreg, there is also a wonderful peer review learning platform. It's an incredible, it has an incredible scope of knowledge on all the countries on various subjects, and it can be also good ground for an idea to the project. I was lucky to be an expert from Sweden and Norway, and we had the topic on integrating Ukrainians into the labor market of the EU countries, and Norway actually ordered this peer review, and there were representatives of Estonia, Sweden, Denmark, Portugal, some other countries, but in any case, it was such a great team from Interreg. They have this learning program platform, which is quite comprehensive and highly recommended. They have a serious database of collecting information. Thank you very much. I actually mentioned this database. If you speak about our refugees, there was recently a contest for 20 million euros among European organizations, especially for helping Ukrainian refugees to be assimilated in the labor market of the EU. Many people from your cities also lived abroad. You can communicate with them. Many of them actually live abroad, and they work with local organizations, and they try to get some volunteer funds or donor funds. These are your people abroad. You can also cooperate with them. Yes, thank you very much, Alexander. You're saying it right. Going back to the budget, I would say that there are key components, typical components like staff costs, travel costs, and as you should understand that if you take subcontracts, the city cannot take, the municipality cannot take of money and give it to some individual entrepreneur. You all use it through your budget and you allocate the costs yourself, but you can use subcontractors. And of course, you can have indirect or overhead costs. Basically, you don't have to have your personal direct funding, but you can have 25% plus to the grant funds according to the Horizon Europe program. There is a various percentage of funding for various types of programs. And now this, going back to how you work in the organization, because, for example, if there is an organization that implements several programs or projects, you should have some tools in your possession. You usually, I know that you usually do not use anything but Excel, Microsoft Excel, but the coordinator of the project might suggest other tools to you. So you should also be able to react to coordinators' proposals and suggestions and use the templates. For example, if there is a European program, they usually provide templates for reporting, documents, etc. And another thing is, in addition to proper implementation of all the tasks, you need to take care of dissemination, disseminate your project. So in the Horizon, there are a delivery plan, how you disseminate the results, the outcome, because the European Commission insists that everything should be aimed at promoting good changes. More or less, we are coming to another topic. Now we were supposed to switch to Horizon, but as far as I understand, Stanislav, do we have a 10-minute break? Maybe we can have a Q&A session about what kind of digital tools you actually use. We now have recording of this meeting, and the presentation will also be provided to you. Please write questions if you have any. If you want to hear details, tomorrow we will discuss Horizon in more details, but maybe you want to know something some
І це
nuances
цікаво, якщо ми говоримо про
as
проєктного
of
менеджменту,
today.
які
And if we
інструменти
speak
ви
of project
використовуєте в
management,
себе
it's really
взагалі
interesting to
для
know what kind of
підтримки, які
tools you
цифрові
use,
інструменти в ваших громадах
digital tools, what
використовуються для
your
внутрішньої
community
роботи.
uses to
Тобто, чи є у
ensure
вас
your
якась
internal
внутрішня
work,
хмара,
whether you have
які
some
хмарні
inner
ресурси,
cloud, some
чи ви
cloud
працюєте з хмарою,
resources,
так?
or you work with
Чи
cloud
якщо
tools,
ви використовуєте
or
на
if
сайті,
you
напевно,
use
більше як регулярно
websites,
ви сайти свої оновлюєте.
how often
Якщо
do
ми
you
говоримо про
update them?
українські громади,
If we speak
який
of
варіант
Ukrainian
вашого
communities in
англомовного
general,
сайту?
what
Тобто,
is the
коли
version of your English website, the English version of your
так,
website?
Томас, окей. Now we will break for 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean. У нас буде зараз перерва, так що там
Now we will
чайте.
have a break, so
Тому
if anyone wants
подумайте,
to leave
над
for a while,
які
that's
ваші
okay.
інструменти, що ви могли
So
би
please think
вдосконалити. Бо
about the tools you have.
з моментів по
One
інструментах
of the issues
цифрових
regarding
і
tools,
участі
digital tools,
в
and
таких, як
involvement
кажу, онлайнових
in
сервісах,
such
то
online services
англомовні версії
is
сайтів
that the
бажають
it's
кращого,
essential to
якщо не
use
сказати більшого.
English
Тому що коли
versions
я,
of the
наприклад, хотів би
websites, but
поцікавитися,
they are
що
not
робить той чи
quite
інший
good, as
партнер, я
I
би
need
хотів,
to
якщо я за
note.
кордону подивитися
For
англомовний
example, if I
ресурс.
look through an
Дехто
English version
просто
of our
включає
city's
опцію
website,
перекладу
it doesn't
Google.
look that much
Ну, з
that
часом
good
Google буде
because
краще
sometimes
перекладати, це
they
якийсь
use
варіант,
just
бо можна
Google
перекладати Google,
translation,
але є питання ваших
but
внутрішніх
it's not.
документів.
But the issue is
І
about your
добре було
internal
би, щоб ви або ваші
documents,
проектні
and it's
менеджери були в
really, it
LinkedIn.
would be really good that
Уже
you
давно в
and your
LinkedIn
project
не тільки
management
айтішники,
would be in
але і
LinkedIn social media.
там
Not
офіцери
only IT
Єврокомісії і інші.
specialists
Вони
are
є в
there, but
LinkedIn.
also
І коли ми
European
опитували
Union
наші організації, коли проводили
offices.
заходи,
When we
то
questioned
дуже мало хто
various
присутній присутній.
organizations, actually not many people are present
Професійна
in
мережа,
LinkedIn,
тому
although it's a professional
англомовний
network
профіль
and it's an
бажано мати.
English-speaking profile where you
Останній момент
where it's
навіть з
desirable for you to
візитками,
be present.
от зараз,
Even
це хай
the
буде форум в Брюсселі чи іншими,
the latest event
щоб
like
обмінюватися
forum in
контактами, просто
Brussels
шеримо
or other
там
case,
QR-код
we
з
can
LinkedIn і
just
встановлюємо контакт в
exchange
LinkedIn.
QR
І
codes
от,
from
ну,
LinkedIn
Станіслав
and
теж
thus
любить
and
менеджер
maintain
є
contacts. I
LinkedIn,
know that
не пише, я
Stanislav
привик
likes
більше до мейла
LinkedIn a lot.
висвоює. Він
I
серед
use
ночі
more
шле мені
email, but
повідомлення в LinkedIn.
Stanislav usually
Пане
sends
Іване, ну
messages
серед
in
ночі ці
LinkedIn
приватні
to
деталі
me.
давайте залишимо.
Oh,
Ввечері. Ні,
let's
так
leave
от
aside
в цьому
this
і момент,
private
дивіться, в цьому
points
момент, коли ви
that
є
I
у
sent you,
проєктах, навіть
something at night.
незважаючи на якісь
You know,
термінові речі,
despite some urgent things,
відповідь
even if
бажано
you
давати відповідь
maintain
протягом
communication on the
24 годин.
projects, it's important to answer
Це все.
within
Але
24
зважаючи на ту
hours
чи
if
іншу
there is a
особливості
certain
характера,
request. But
людина, яка
taking into
написала,
account
вона
some
очікує якомога швидше.
peculiarities of a person, actually,
Тому
sometimes
цей,
people
цей
write
момент
faster,
він
sometimes
важливий
later.
реагувати на повідомлення
It's
з
very
різними
important to
каналами.
respond to
Інколи
messages
це
through
втомлює.
various channels.
Там
Sometimes
мене 4 месенджері,
I have 4 messages
Звук,
actually,
Signal,
says Ivan. It's
WhatsApp,
Звук, Signal,
Telegram,
WhatsApp,
групи.
Telegram,
Воно
various
трохи,
groups,
ну,
but
так в мене це перебор. От. Але
for me
так чи
it's too
інакше,
much.
ви
But
в європейських проєктах ви
in any way,
домовляєтеся про канали
with European
комунікації.
in
І
European Union
ще один
projects, you
момент, на що наші люди
agree what
звертають
kind of
увагу,
channels
це
you
такі
use.
європейці
Also, I'd
більше
like to
привикли
mention
до
that
додатку.
Europeans are
Йде до
more
Телеграму,
used
у нас
to
Телеграм переважає. От. І,
WhatsApp rather than
ну, і там
Telegram
дехто
because we
сигналить,
have
так просто,
Telegram
якщо
prevalent, and
зовсім
some
дзвониться
use
не дуже часто.
Signal,
Тому
but not very
мейл,
often.
LinkedIn,
So
WhatsApp,
mail,
Станіслав може
WhatsApps,
прокоментувати з складу, як вони
WhatsApp and
комунікують. Ну, принаймні, ви створили
LinkedIn.
групу в WhatsApp.
At
Я
least,
бачу.
as far as I know, we
Так,
maintained a
так. Ну, і з
working
огляду на те,
group
що у нас уже
in
буквально
WhatsApp for
навіть
today.
хвилинка
And since we
до,
have
перерви,
just a
тому
minute before the
невеличкий
break,
короткий
let
підсумок підведу
me
і стосовно
summarize
вже
a little
месенджерів
bit
додам,
regarding
то
messengers.
сигналі, то
I
певно,
should
якщо вже
add that
зовсім
in
щось таке
Signal,
приватне, необхідно
if
скинути
you
донора,
can use
а
Signal
так,
if you
звичайно,
need
що
to
WhatsApp,
share some
LinkedIn
very,
дуже
very
популярні
private,
дійсно, тому
confidential
що
information, but
це не
WhatsApp
просто
and
професійна
LinkedIn
мережа, це
are
в першу
very
чергу про
popular
аудиторію,
because these are
яка
not
більш
just
сфокусована на,
social
власне,
media,
таких
but
робочих
it's about the
питаннях, а не
audience. These are the
е,
audiences which are
красивих
focused
картинках,
on
тому, власне, такі
some
соцмережі
business
є
issues, working issues,
дуже
and not
корисними для
nice
підтримання
pictures.
цих
So
взаємностей з
such
донорами, з
social
іншими
networks are
партнерами і так
very
далі.
convenient in supporting and maintaining your connections with the donors and partners. Regarding the first part of our training, we have 27 active participants right now. It's very good since this training is quite a close type. First of all, it's intended for municipalities in the framework of the initiative Bridges of Trust. I hope you've got a lot of information. It's a review of overview of various programs like Single Market, Digital Europe, Horizon, Urbeck, project management, and some basics have been voiced, but this is actually the base, the foundation without which we cannot continue our training. So it was very important. I know that you still have questions on the form, registration form. So I think, Ivan, we can start the next session with several questions so that we give answers to them. And right now we have 10 minutes break just to rest a little bit and have a cup of tea or coffee. And meanwhile, Stanislav will send questions to Ivan. So 10 questions break. Please stay with us and see you soon.